What if $500,000 could buy you more freedom than most people achieve with millions in the bank? While conventional retirement advice suggests needing $2 million or more, some financial independence advocates claim that $500,000 can provide complete freedom through passive income strategies. Here's what most financial independence content won't tell you honestly. This approach assumes very low living expenses and withdrawal rates that may exceed safe recommendations, potentially creating unrealistic expectations about early retirement for many Americans. Over the next few minutes, I'll reveal 7 principles about designing financial independence with an honest assessment of both the mathematical potential and significant limitations. The 4th principle shows why lifestyle design matters more than income maximization, though individual circumstances vary dramatically. If you want realistic financial independence education without oversimplified promises, subscribe and comment strategic freedom below. But that's just the beginning. What I'm about to reveal shows why the well's eternal flow explains both the appeal and the limitations of passive income strategies. 1. Passive income generation from investments. Most people think building wealth means accumulating massive amounts of money that you eventually spend down until it's gone. You save for decades, then slowly drain your accounts during retirement, hoping the money lasts longer than you do. This approach creates constant anxiety about whether you have enough and whether your savings will survive unexpected expenses or market downturns. This spending down mentality keeps people trapped in the mindset that they need millions of dollars to feel secure, because they're essentially planning to consume their wealth rather than making it work permanently. Let me tell you about 2 people who approached water access completely differently. The bucket carrier worked tirelessly every day, hauling water from distant sources to meet his daily needs. His income stopped the moment he stopped working, and he lived in constant fear of injury or illness that would cut off his water supply entirely. The spring tender invested time and effort in building infrastructure around a natural spring that provided consistent water flow without requiring his daily labor. Once established, the spring delivered fresh water continuously while he focused on other activities, and the water source could even serve future generations. The solution is shifting from accumulation thinking to cash flow thinking, building investment portfolios that generate ongoing income rather than accounts you plan to deplete. However, the commonly cited 4% withdrawal rule suggests more conservative expectations than the 6 to 8% implied in some financial independence frameworks. Here's something realistic you can research. Calculate how much annual passive income your current savings actually generate through dividends, interest, and conservative withdrawal rates. This gives you a baseline for understanding how much principal you'd need to cover your actual living expenses. The mindset shift needed is viewing investments as income-generating assets rather than savings accounts to eventually spend. However, this approach assumes favorable market conditions that may not continue indefinitely, and withdrawal rates higher than 4% annually may not be sustainable during prolonged market downturns. Critical reality check. Generating $25 to $40K annually from 500K requires either higher risk investments or withdrawal rates that exceed commonly recommended safe levels. Individual circumstances, living costs, and market conditions significantly affect whether this approach provides genuine financial security. Focus on building multiple income streams and emergency reserves rather than depending entirely on investment withdrawals for basic living expenses. 2. Freedom through options rather than luxury. Society constantly bombards you with messages that happiness requires expensive purchases, luxury experiences, and status symbols that drain your finances. You feel pressure to upgrade your lifestyle every time your income increases. Better car, nicer apartment, fancier restaurants, because you've been conditioned to believe these purchases equal success and satisfaction. Meanwhile, these lifestyle upgrades often trap you in cycles of higher expenses that prevent building real financial security. This consumption treadmill keeps people working longer and harder to maintain lifestyles that don't actually improve their fundamental well-being, while preventing them from building the financial foundation that could provide genuine freedom and choices. Let me tell you about two philosophers who approached life satisfaction completely differently. The luxury collector believed happiness came through accumulating impressive possessions and experiences that would demonstrate his success to others. He spent heavily on status symbols, expensive entertainment, and lifestyle upgrades that felt rewarding temporarily, but required constant income to maintain. The time sovereign focused on distinguishing between genuine needs and manufactured wants. He found satisfaction in simple pleasures, meaningful relationships, and activities that didn't require ongoing financial commitments. This approach freed up resources that he could direct toward building long-term security and options. The solution involves consciously designing your lifestyle around what genuinely creates satisfaction, rather than what society suggests you should want. However, this approach requires balance. Extreme frugality can harm relationships and mental health if taken too far. Here's something practical you can try. Track your spending for 1 month and categorize each expense as essential, genuinely enjoyable, or social pressure status. This helps identify where money goes toward things that don't actually improve your life satisfaction. The mindset shift needed is understanding that true wealth means having options rather than possessions. However, this doesn't mean completely eliminating reasonable lifestyle enjoyment or becoming antisocial about spending. Critical balance consideration, while reducing unnecessary expenses can accelerate financial goals, avoid extreme frugality that damages important relationships or creates social isolation. The goal is intentional spending that aligns with your values, not deprivation that undermines your mental health or social connections. Individual circumstances vary dramatically regarding what constitutes essential versus luxury spending based on location, family responsibilities, and personal values. 3. Reducing expenses to accelerate independence. The constant pressure to maintain and upgrade your lifestyle creates a financial treadmill where increased income gets absorbed by higher expenses, preventing you from building meaningful savings. You get a raise and immediately start thinking about a better apartment, nicer car, or more expensive entertainment because lifestyle inflation feels natural and deserved. Meanwhile, these automatic spending increases consume the extra income that could accelerate your path to financial independence. This pattern keeps people earning more while saving the same percentage, effectively working longer to maintain lifestyles that don't necessarily increase their actual happiness or life satisfaction. Let me tell you about two people who approached material desires completely differently. The status seeker constantly upgraded his possessions and lifestyle to match his growing income and social expectations. Every promotion meant better clothes, fancier restaurants, and more expensive entertainment because he believed these upgrades reflected his success and would improve his happiness. The contentment practitioner learned to distinguish between genuine needs and manufactured wants created by social pressure or marketing. He found satisfaction in simple pleasures, meaningful experiences, and relationships that didn't require expensive maintenance, allowing him to direct most income increases toward building long-term security. The solution involves consciously resisting automatic lifestyle inflation when income increases, instead directing the majority of raises toward savings and investments. However, extreme frugality can become psychologically harmful and damage important relationships if taken too far. Here's something balanced you can implement. When you receive income increases, automatically direct at least 50% towards savings before adjusting any spending patterns. Use the remaining portion for modest lifestyle improvements if desired, but protect the majority for wealth building. The mindset shift needed is understanding that temporary pleasures often cost more than their actual value. while building financial security provides lasting satisfaction. However, avoid extreme frugality that creates social isolation, relationship conflicts, or anxiety about normal spending. Critical wellness consideration. If expense reduction becomes obsessive, creates anxiety about reasonable purchases, or damages important relationships, you've taken it too far. The goal is intentional spending that supports both financial goals and overall life satisfaction. Individual circumstances vary dramatically regarding what constitutes reasonable versus excessive spending based on income level, family responsibilities, and social context. Maintain balance between financial discipline and mental health. 4. Consistent saving and compound growth. Building substantial wealth through regular savings feels impossibly slow when you're starting out, causing many people to either never begin or give up after a few years when results don't feel meaningful. You might save $500 monthly for 3 years and see only $18,000 plus modest gains, thinking, at this rate, I'll never have enough to matter. This discouragement leads people to abandon systematic saving in favor of hoping for income windfalls or investment shortcuts that rarely materialize. The get-rich-quick mentality prevents people from starting the slow but reliable process of compound wealth building, keeping them perpetually waiting for dramatic solutions rather than implementing consistent habits. Let me tell you about 2 people who approached wealth building completely differently. The harvest consumer used all available income for immediate consumption and lifestyle upgrades, believing he'd address savings later when earning more money. He constantly waited for the right time to start building wealth seriously. The seed investor consistently saved a portion of every harvest, knowing that patience and time would multiply future abundance. She understood that small, consistent actions compound into substantial results over decades, even when daily progress felt invisible. Mathematical reality shows this patience pays off. $2,000 monthly savings reaches approximately $500,000 in 18 years, while $500 monthly takes about 30 years, assuming 7% returns. However, these calculations assume favorable market conditions and consistent ability to save that many people don't have. Here's something realistic you can start. If you're not saving anything, begin with whatever amount feels sustainable, even $50 monthly. If you're already saving, consider increasing by just 1% of your income, rather than dramatic changes that might not be sustainable. The mindset shift needed is viewing wealth building as a decades-long process rather than a quick accumulation strategy. However, be honest about the individual circumstances that affect saving ability. Student loans, family obligations, healthcare costs, and economic conditions can limit saving capacity regardless of discipline. Critical reality check. This approach assumes stable income and disposable money that many Americans don't have. Don't feel inadequate if circumstances prevent substantial saving. Focus on building emergency funds and financial stability first. Individual timelines and capacity vary dramatically based on factors beyond personal control. 5. Addressing inflation and market volatility concerns. When you start planning for financial independence, legitimate fears about inflation, market crashes, and running out of money can paralyze you from taking any action at all. You see news about economic uncertainty, remember stories about people losing their savings in market downturns, and worry that any financial independence plan could be destroyed by factors beyond your control. These concerns feel so overwhelming that you might avoid investing entirely, keeping money in savings accounts where inflation slowly erodes its purchasing power. This fear-based paralysis often leads people to either take no action or make overly conservative choices that virtually guarantee they'll never achieve financial independence, even though moderate risk-taking with proper safeguards offers better long-term security than avoiding risk entirely. Let me tell you about 2 military commanders facing uncertain battle conditions. The single defense commander put all resources into one protective strategy, believing that maximum concentration would provide optimal security. When unexpected attacks came from different directions, his single defense point became a catastrophic vulnerability. The adaptive strategist built multiple layers of protection and maintained flexibility to respond to changing threats. He diversified defensive positions, kept reserves for unexpected situations, and planned multiple response scenarios. When attacks came, his layered approach absorbed damage while maintaining operational capability. The solution involves building financial resilience through diversification across asset classes, maintaining conservative withdrawal rates, and keeping emergency reserves rather than putting everything into one strategy. However, no approach eliminates all risks, and market conditions can remain unfavorable for extended periods. Here's something practical you can implement. If you're building toward financial independence, consider allocating investments across stocks, bonds, and cash reserves, rather than concentrating in any single asset class. Research suggests withdrawal rates of 3 to 4% annually may be more sustainable than the higher rates sometimes promoted. The mindset shift needed is understanding that managing risk is different from eliminating risk. However, be realistic about the uncertainties involved. Inflation can exceed expectations, markets can decline for years, and individual circumstances can change in ways that affect financial needs. Critical honesty. No financial independence strategy guarantees success, and individual circumstances regarding health, family responsibilities, and economic conditions can significantly affect outcomes. Focus on building resilience and flexibility rather than seeking certainty that doesn't exist in financial markets. 6. Psychological changes from financial independence. Living paycheck to paycheck creates a psychological dependency where every major life decision gets filtered through financial necessity rather than personal values or long-term vision. You might stay in jobs you dislike, avoid career risks that could improve your situation, or make relationship and location decisions based primarily on financial security rather than what genuinely serves your well-being. This survival-focused mindset limits your ability to pursue opportunities that require short-term sacrifice for long-term gain. Financial dependency often prevents people from developing their authentic interests, skills, or relationships because immediate income needs override everything else, creating lives built around economic necessity rather than personal fulfillment. Let me tell you about two scholars who approached their careers completely differently. The wage-dependent made every decision based on maintaining a steady income and employer approval. He avoided risks, stayed in comfortable but limiting situations, and measured success primarily through financial metrics rather than personal growth or contribution. The autonomous designer had built enough of a financial cushion to make choices based on values and long-term vision rather than immediate economic necessity. This allowed him to pursue meaningful projects, take calculated risks for growth, and design his career around contribution rather than just survival. The solution involves gradually building enough financial security to shift from scarcity-driven to opportunity-driven decision-making. However, this assumes you can accumulate sufficient resources to feel secure, which depends heavily on individual circumstances and market conditions. Here's something realistic to consider. Rather than waiting for complete financial independence, focus on building emergency funds that provide some decision-making flexibility. Even 3 to 6 months of expenses can reduce the psychological pressure of financial dependency. The mindset shift involves moving from "what do I have to do" to "what do I want to do." However, this transformation requires genuine financial security and shouldn't involve taking unrealistic risks that could harm family stability or long-term well-being. Critical balance. While financial security can provide psychological benefits, avoid using money as the primary solution to life satisfaction issues that might require other approaches. Financial independence doesn't automatically solve relationship problems, health challenges, or existential questions about purpose and meaning. Individual circumstances vary dramatically regarding what constitutes sufficient security for this psychological shift, and some people may never achieve the level of financial independence required for complete autonomy from economic concerns. 7. Starting small and scaling consistently. Perfectionist thinking keeps many people from starting to build wealth because they're waiting for ideal conditions that never arrive. You tell yourself you'll start investing seriously when you get a better job, pay off student loans, move to a cheaper area, or when you have $10,000 to make it worth it. Meanwhile, years pass while you wait for circumstances to align perfectly, missing the compound growth that could have been accumulating during those waiting periods. This all-or-nothing mentality prevents people from taking advantage of their most valuable asset, time, because they're focused on having perfect amounts or perfect timing, rather than consistent progress with whatever resources they currently have. Let me tell you about two people approaching construction projects completely differently. The perfect timing waiter postponed starting his foundation until he could afford premium materials, ideal weather conditions, and expert contractors all at once. He spent years planning and saving for the perfect project while his empty lot remained unused. The progressive builder started with basic materials and simple techniques, then improved and expanded systematically over time. His structure looked modest initially, but consistent work created a solid foundation that he could build upon as resources became available. The solution involves starting wealth building with whatever amount feels sustainable right now, then gradually increasing contributions as income grows and expenses optimize. However, be realistic about individual circumstances that might limit saving capacity, including debt obligations, family responsibilities, and economic uncertainties. Here's something practical you can implement. If you're not currently investing, start with an amount that won't create financial stress, even $25 monthly. Set up automatic transfers so consistency happens without requiring ongoing willpower. Focus on establishing the habit rather than the amount. The mindset shift needed is understanding that imperfect action beats perfect inaction when it comes to compound growth. However, avoid taking financial risks that could harm your basic security or family stability in pursuit of investment returns. Critical reality check. This approach assumes you have some disposable income after covering essential needs. Many Americans face constraints including housing costs, healthcare expenses, and debt payments that limit investment capacity regardless of motivation. Don't feel inadequate if circumstances prevent substantial saving. Focus on building emergency funds and financial stability first. Individual financial situations vary dramatically based on factors beyond personal control, and sustainable wealth building looks different for everyone. These 7 principles demonstrate concepts about financial independence through passive income, but require honest assessment about both the potential and significant limitations involved. The 500,000 equals complete freedom framework assumes very low living expenses and withdrawal rates that may not be sustainable during unfavorable market conditions. Financial independence requirements vary dramatically based on individual circumstances, including location, family responsibilities, health considerations, and personal values. The suggested 6 to 7% withdrawal rates exceed commonly recommended safe rates and could lead to portfolio depletion during prolonged market downturns. Building financial security through emergency funds and gradual investment increases makes more sense than pursuing oversimplified independence formulas that may not fit your actual situation. Market conditions can remain unfavorable for extended periods beyond individual control, and individual circumstances significantly affect realistic financial independence capacity. Focus on building financial resilience rather than chasing specific independence numbers that assume favorable conditions and very low expenses. What does realistic financial security mean in your specific circumstances and location? Share your balanced approach below and subscribe for honest financial education that prioritizes individual well-being over promotional promises.